أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان رب المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يسأله من في السماوات والأرض كل يوم هو في شأن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان فبأي الإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يرسل عليكما شواظ من نار ونحاس فلا تنتصران فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فإذا انشقت السماء فكانت وردة كالدهان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيومئذ لا يسأل عن ذنبه إنس ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يعرف المجرمون بسيماهم فيؤخذ بالنواصي والأقدام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هذه جهنم التي يكذب بها المجرمون يطوفون بينها وبين حميم آن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ولمن خاف مقام ربه جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ذواتا أفنان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان تجريان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما من كل فاكهة زوجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على فرش بطائنها من استبرق وجنى الجنتين دان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن قاصرات الطرف لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كأنهن الياقوت والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ومن دونهما جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مدهامتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان نضاختان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما فاكهة ونخل ورمان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن خيرات حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان حور مقصورات في الخيام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على رفرف خضر وعبقري حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان تبارك اسم ربك ذي الجلال والإكرام صدق الله العلي العظيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك التي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحت كل عصم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائه ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فادح من البلاء قلته وكم من عثار وقيته وكم من مكروه دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقسرت بي أعمالي وقدعتني الدنيا وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومطالي يا سيدي. فأسألك بعزتك ألا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفتحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك وخالفت بعد أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاءك. وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك وقد أديتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا. مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مدعنا معترفا لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري وفكني من شد وثاقي يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عدمي يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي حبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد ما طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولهج به لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته أو تبعد من أدنيته أو تشرد من آويته أو تسلم إلى البلاء ما كفيته ورحمته وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة وبشكرك مادحة وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة وأشارت باستغفارك مدعنة ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا ربي وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها ألا أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكسوه يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره على فيه أهلها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير مسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها ذج وأبكي لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي، صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك، وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك، أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك. فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لأن تركتني ناطقا لأذجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يذج إليك ذجيج معمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك، أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك، أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه، أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه، أم كيف يتقلقل بين أتباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه، أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربه، أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها. هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك، ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك، فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمته به تعذيب جاهديك، وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك. أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدعا وتتولت بالإنعام متكرما، أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته، وكل ذنب أذنبته، وكل قبيح أسررته، وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته، أخفيته أو أظهرته، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني، وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم. وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فضلته أو بر تنشره أو رزق تبسطه أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا أليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة وبخدمتك موصولة، وأعمالي عندك مقبولة، حتى تكون أعمالي وأوراتي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، قو على خدمتك جوارحي، واشتد على العزيمة جوانحي، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في اتصال بخدمتك، حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين، وأسرع إليك في المبادرين، واشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد، ومن كادني فكد، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخسهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك. وجد لي بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة. فإليك يا ربي نسبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء. يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقم، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم، يا عالما لا يعلم. صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
Sayyid Hasan, Rizvi, respected elders, dearest brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum, Jamia wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Surah Fatiha is requested for all marhameen listed on the screen, as well as all other marhameen. Surah Mubarak al-Fatiha. Washfa Maries is requested for all those who are in need here and elsewhere. Let us recite together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويخشف السوء 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويخشف السوء. Ya Allah. Let us now invite Sayyid Hasan Rizvi to come forward and recite tonight's majlis by Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat.
من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين، شفيع المذنبين، رحمة للعالمين، سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا والطبيب ذنوبنا، أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل على Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So inshallah we'll be returning to our normal Thursday night programs. Where we had left off we had been going through a series on the topic of the 12th Imam, Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farjuhu sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And the topic was about how we build a community that is wilaya ready. A community that's ready to accept the leadership of their Imam, inshallah, when he returns. And while we were going through that, one of the subtopics that we had gone through, after going through some questions and objections that people raise about the 12th Imam, we had then talked about the idea of ma'rifah, about having extensive and deep knowledge, and that one of the main criterion of a Shia is to be educated, to have that deep understanding of Islam. So we started to go through a commentary on this famous dua known as Dua Zamanul Ghaiba, which begins, Allahumma arifni nafsak. So we had gone through that a few different sessions and we were on the first line regarding Allahumma arifni nafsak. So we were trying to figure out, what does it mean to understand Allah's nafs? What does it mean to have greater ma'rifah of Allah? So our discussion was about tawheed in general. One of the last points that we had mentioned before we ended last time was regarding a hadith from our fourth Imam, Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Where he was reported to have said that Allah had sent down, and I paraphrase just for sake of time, that Allah had sent down Suratul Tawheed, Surah Tawheed, Surah Al-Ikhlas, because towards the end of time, in Akhir Zaman, there will be individuals known as the Muta'ammaqun. Those who are deep thinkers, people who reflect. So this gave us an understanding that Surah Tawheed itself has a lot of deeper meanings that maybe you and I didn't get. And inshallah, eventually we may spend Thursday nights talking a little bit more about that. But where we left off was about the topic of Allah himself. Like, okay, well, what are we missing about God? We talked about how there's two different ways of understanding Allah, or Tawheed in general. One is the way that you and I grew up with, which is that Allah ek, right? God is one, monotheism, and that's it. We said that there's a different understanding, which is Tawheed is an action. And Tawheed, when it's in action, is when we try to unify and bring everything that's in existence in unity with Allah. Trying to understand and constantly do that. How do we understand each and every event in our lives in terms of it as an action from God, as a fi'l of Allah? The last point we talked about was Allah is broken up into two different parts. The word Allah itself. It's al plus ilah. And we talked a little bit about what ilah means last time, the different meanings. And now where we left off is what this alif lam means. Why is there an alif lam on the word ilah, right? Ilah meaning worshipped, or the one that causes bewilderment. Why do we take the word, the particle, or the article, alif lam, which normally translates to the? Why do we add that to the word ilah? And what sort of meaning does that give that? So inshallah, what we'll talk about today is what this alif lam means and what it does when we combine it with the word ilah to give us the word Allah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Inshallah, after we go through our discussion tonight, as usual, we'll have our quiz at the end. And if we have time, if there are any questions, I think there may have been one, we'll take a look at that. And we'll see what the results of the poll are. The poll is so far that we had started in our last session. When alif lam is normally used in Arabic, basically you have two different structures, right? And this goes for any language. A word can either be indefinite or it can be definite. So if I say, for example, I need a pen. I need a pencil, right? Usually in English we use the article a or an, if the next word begins with a vowel. I need a pen, I need a pencil. Now if I say something like that, versus me saying I need the pen, I need the pencil, what's the difference between these two? Saying a versus saying the. The difference is when somebody says, I need a pen or a pencil, I need a book, I need a piece of paper. When that article a is there, when it's indefinite, it's ambiguous. You can bring anything. So if I said, bring me a pen, then you can bring me black, blue, purple, it won't really matter. If I say, bring me a pencil, you can bring me a pencil from anywhere, any shape, number 1, 2, 3, whatever. It should be, because I didn't specify, anything should be okay. But if I say, bring me the pencil, that article the that comes in front now makes the word pencil definite. What that means is that you and I should have the same thing in mind. So normally when somebody says the, either both of us have that shared concept in our mind, or usually I'd be pointing to something, right? So now let me give an easier example, I guess, for us to see here. So if I say, bring me a microphone. So technically you could bring, a random microphone from inside the media room. You could bring me the lavalier mic that's on top of the podium. You could bring me anything you want, and that would be fine. If I say, bring me the mic, then specifically I'm talking about one instance, that specific microphone. And if somebody were to go and grab something else, I'd say, no, not that one. That's normally how we differentiate between indefinite and definite. So some scholars say that's the reason alif lam, when it's attached to the word ilah, the usage of it is that when Allah is speaking about himself, or we're using the word Allah, it's saying that there are many different types of ilahs, different types of gods, lowercase g. But when we want to specify the one that's being mentioned by the prophets, right, in the Abrahamic tradition, then we have to add this alif lam so everybody understands exactly who we're talking about. So that's the reason why any Jew or any Christian, or typically Christian, not necessarily Jews, but Christians and Muslims who are speaking Arabic will all say Allah, because we're talking about that same single entity, the same single reality, right? There's no difference there. Yeah, the details, there's going to be differences, right, in terms of the Trinity and whatever. But we're supposed to be talking about the same single reality. The God that everybody, that's a monotheist, that's a result of the Abrahamic faiths, from Adam all the way down to Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. We're all talking about the same thing. So some scholars say that's where the alif lam comes from, just to specify, make things not ambiguous anymore. And it's because the Arabs at that time were Christians, they were Jews, or even the ones who were just other types of pagans. They still had a general understanding of a single God in their mind too. So when Rasulullah or Allah in the Quran is mentioning Allah, they're just trying to say, look, we're talking about the exact same thing. It's the same reality, right? So let's get on the same page. It's not some other random God. That's one way that some scholars say that's why the alif lam comes before the word ilah, and that's why we have Allah. Other scholars say, look, that's nice, but it doesn't go deep enough. There's a deeper meaning here, why we have the alif lam in front of the word ilah, which gives us the word Allah. Why is that the case? Let's discuss that. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imagine now somebody's visiting from outside Orlando, right? So they're coming from, the tri-state area, maybe they're coming from Canada, and this is their first time in the area, right? And they want to know, hey, I'm looking for a good halal food. Where can I go? So you might mention, okay, you have an answer? You might say, you can go to this place, this is a halal pizza place, this is a halal burger place, this has gyros, whatever, right? You can start mentioning all these different places. And they all technically are halal spots. But then you might say, listen, if you really want food, then this is the halal spot to go to in Orlando, right? So the way that you use the word the is for a very specific type of emphasis. The way that you use the word the, let's say, for example, somebody asks for burgers, right? You might say, look, this place has burgers, this place has burgers, and this place has halal burgers, but this one is the halal burger spot in Orlando. So the way that you use the, even though the rest of the places will sell halal burgers, the reason that you use the is to emphasize that, look, this is the only one worth going to. This is the only one worth eating at. Every other place is, insignificant when you compare it to the place that I'm talking about. So when ulama say that, why is alif lam coming in front of this? They're trying to say that, look, there are many different types of objects of worship. We can worship a lot of different things, but there's only one that's actually worthy of worship. There's only one real God. Everything else is insignificant, or in other words, everything else is unreal. It's fake. It doesn't count as a real object of worship. So what we're saying is, yes, people do worship their own nafs. People do worship idols. People do worship money. They do worship power. They worship celebrities. They worship a lot of things. Those are all lowercase g gods. But if you want to go to the one and only God, then that is Allah. That is what the alif lam is used for. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, we might ask the question, okay, yeah, we get it, we're Muslims, we say that God is the only one worthy of worship, right? We say La ilaha illallah. But, and I mentioned the examples before, what are some of the reasons why even Muslims themselves will worship things alongside God? Right? We might all say La ilaha illallah, there's only one God, sure. But in practice, sometimes it looks a little different. Sometimes we end up worshiping other things too. So let's look at some of the reasons and some of the objects of worship that especially exist in societies, both modern day and in ancient history. Many people in the past had worshipped, forget like gods, like that's a simple idea. But we're talking about even kings or rulers of their society, right? Especially in a monarchical society and a government. They would worship the kings and queens that were there. And why? Well, it's a simple reason. A lot of people, back then and even now, they will worship people because of the authority and the power and the control that they exert. Because of the power that they hold and the power that they wield, that they become an object of worship. I see a king, or you can even say even a president, or a prime minister, or a politician, or somebody like that. They have all of this power and authority, and because of that, people will worship them. They will latch onto every single thing that they say. Whatever they say, right? If they mention one thing, look at what people would do regarding Trump, right? For example, ex-President Trump. Whatever he would say regarding vaccines or masks or certain solutions for COVID, the people who worshipped him would follow it blindly, right? Say, like, because he's saying it, we're going to listen to it no matter what. And likewise, we'll have people who do the same thing with Biden, right? Whatever he says or whatever certain government officials say, they'll follow blindly as well, because they have become an object of worship because of the power and control that they wield. So that's one reason and one type of object of worship. Others will worship celebrities, whether they're athletes, musicians, entertainers, whatever. And it's not because they have control, right? Because so even though celebrities do, run their mouths constantly, they try to give us advice, it's because of the fame that they have. Because they have that attention focused on them, and naturally a human being, just like with power and control, fame and attention is something that we all want too. We all, our nafs craves that attention all the time. That's why social media is such a attractive thing for most people. Because you can be an absolute nobody, you have nothing worthwhile to say, but social media makes you feel like you're a celebrity. It makes you feel like you're an object of worship. That's why so many, especially kids are attracted to it, right? And even adults, unfortunately. So celebrities, because of their status, because of the fame that they have, many people will just worship everything they say. So forget, listening to a president about, corona stuff. A lot of people will go onto a celebrity because of the fame that they have, and they will latch onto everything that they say. So, for example, right now, I guess the most recent, I guess we'll stick with the COVID-related stuff. They say Joe Rogan recently, a lot of people follow what he has to say. He's not a doctor, obviously, but he recently contracted COVID, and then he was pretty much free of COVID after, he had a negative test after 5 or 6 days. Because of the fame that he holds, a lot of people, he's somebody that doesn't believe in the vaccine, right? Especially for somebody who's gotten natural immunity, like him. So he doesn't necessarily push the vaccine out in that sense. And he has his own views about, how COVID should be taken care of. So a lot of people are debating him, but a lot of his fan following are latching onto every single thing that he says, just because of his celebrity status. So whatever advice he's giving about COVID or about the vaccines, whatever, they're jumping onto what he's saying, right? Just because of his status. Another group, which sometimes, let's say Muslims or anybody in terms of their religion might latch onto, are ulama, scholars, right? And this is in two different ways. So normally we would say, yeah, we should attach ourselves to ulama and scholars, right? But there's a problem here. Many individuals in our communities are not just following scholars, but they're now unfortunately worshiping scholars too. It's a big disease in our communities. Whether it's scholars of the past or it's, scholars right now. And I'm saying scholars because we can sometimes confuse that with celebrity speakers, right? And there is a difference. But we're talking about actual ulama, actual scholars who have something to say. See, it's good. They have a lot of knowledge, which is something what's wonderful. The issue with worshiping is that most of us don't have the nuanced ability to discern whether they're talking about something that they've actually researched, like that's something that's in their own field. Let's say this alim, his expertise is in fiqh. Okay, so we can follow him in fiqh, like a marja, for example. You have another alim who's an expert in history. Okay, maybe you want to follow him in history. Good. You have another scholar, an alim, who spreads information about akhlaq and how you perfect your soul. Okay, great. But sometimes we will, they'll go outside of their jurisdiction and they'll start talking about things that they don't have any information on. Again, let's stick to the same example. Let's say they start commenting about corona. Well, do they have the medical, know-how and the background to be able to comment or not? Maybe, maybe not. For example, a lot of, certain celebrities, scholars, speakers, whatever they are, have been going around saying that there's no corona in Karbala. I don't know why they're saying things like that, when clearly there are people who went to Karbala for ziyarah and they contracted corona there, whether on ziyarah or otherwise, and they've come back. I have people in my own family who went for ziyarah, they've come back and they got corona. So why are scholars spreading this misinformation? Again, whatever subject matter that they're experts in, that's great. But why are they running around saying that there's no corona in Karbala? I don't know why they're saying things like this. This is ridiculous. It makes them look bad. It makes Shiism look bad. It makes Islam look bad in general. So, they should stay in their lane and comment on things that they have the right to comment on, and not talk about these issues which clearly should be very obvious to other individuals. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Look, if you like a scholar, you like what they talk about, they're a good orator, that's wonderful. Listen to them, get benefit from them, get motivated, that's great. You don't have to take every single piece of, everything that comes out of their mouth is not Islam. It's not from the Quran, it's not from the Ahlul Bayt. We used to have this joke in Qum that, sometimes we would sit down with these great scholars of akhlaq and they would give us these wonderful pieces of advice. But then somebody else in the crowd would ask them, what's your favorite, kebab place to go to? Who cares what he has to say about where to get, juje kebab? Who cares? Just because he's a great scholar of akhlaq doesn't mean he has any good taste in food. In fact, it might be the complete opposite, right? Usually those, and that's why people don't like when I talk about food. You don't know good food, your keto nonsense, you don't talk about food. Well, those who have actually tried my stuff like my coffee, they know that I know what I'm talking about, right? So, maybe I do know what I'm talking about, but, I guess I have to prove it to them. Anyway, just because somebody's an expert or gives advice on one thing doesn't mean all of a sudden they know what they're talking about in every single discipline. Now again, for the average individual, they won't know that. You won't know that this person doesn't have an expertise in every single Islamic science. So, for example, even maraji, when a marja, the reason we follow a certain marja will be because of their fiqh, their legal rulings, that's it. There are lawyers in front of God, that's pretty much it. When they mention something historical, that's different than their fiqh. If my marja is telling me, for example, that chess is haram, okay, I'm following my marja in that ruling, or, whatever he says, fine. But if now he comments on something historical, I don't have to do taqleed to him in historical matters. I don't have to do taqleed to him in advice that he may give about the West. I don't have to do taqleed to him in, how to run communities over here. They may have advice which is beneficial, maybe, but the realm of fiqh is different than the realm of giving advice over here. The realm of fiqh is different than the realm of akhlaq. The realm of fiqh is different than philosophy, than irfan, than all these other sciences. These are all separate things that are studied. In the Hawza as well, maybe in some other occasion we can talk about these differences. Maybe on these 1 out of 4 Thursdays that we do. Maybe we can talk about it a bit more. But when somebody has ijtihad in fiqh, in usul, that's when they start becoming, passing fatawa and giving rulings. That doesn't mean that they're an expert in philosophy. And likewise, if there are ulama who are experts in philosophy or irfan, that doesn't mean that they are marja as well, right? They can maybe have a comment or a statement about a certain ruling, but that doesn't mean that they actually have the knowledge to pass a fatwa. And that's why you'll see a lot of philosophers, a lot of urafa, they don't have a tawdi al-masail because they've never reached that expert level. Likewise, most of the maraji, they don't have books on philosophy. They don't have books on akhlaq. They don't have books on history because it's not their expertise. They have something to say, definitely, but maybe they haven't spent as much time as other scholars may have. And especially nowadays, you see this from some of the past ulama. This was an advice from somebody like Sayyid Mutahari, rahmatullah alayh. He said that what you'll find now is ulama will not be able to be experts in every single science like they used to do previously. Because the amount of research that's required to be an expert in all of these things requires a lifetime. So that's why you'll see, even now, in one specific section of fiqh, you'll see an expert. Like, this guy, this marja, is really good when it comes to rules about Hajj. But this marja seems to be better when it comes to rulings about hijab. And this marja seems to be better when it comes to rulings about, salat, for example. And a lot of ulama of the past, they kind of foreshadow that this is what's going to happen. And a lot of ulama now in the hawza, that's what they're telling these students to do too. Focus on one subject, master that, and then go on to the next. Because, the problem is if you're not doing this, then you'll end up becoming a master of none. Right? To become a Renaissance man and to have this knowledge base and everything is going to be very, very difficult. And you see that in our time right now. And like I said, for the average individual to parse through and figure out what expertise is where, this person's making a comment about, Imam Mahdi, this person's talking about this historical issue, this person's talking about tawassul. The average person is not going to know if they actually have an expertise in that matter or not, right? And that's why I always advise, if you don't have the time to sit there and do the research to figure out what this person in this short clip is actually saying is correct or not, it's better if you just ignore it. If you don't have the time to go and research and spend the time reading books and asking ulama, then don't bother. Otherwise, you're just going to get stuck in shak. Your iman is going to get reduced because of it. Why would you bother doing that, right? In the same way, not like flat earth and, round earth really matters that much, but if somebody doesn't want to lose their iman in the fact that the world is round, then don't go spending, all your time watching YouTube videos about flat earthers. It's going to mess your head up. You might think that you have enough information to disprove them, but some of these guys know how to make videos properly. They know how to frame arguments to confuse people, right? Again, I'm not passing judgment if you're a flat earther, by the way. You can believe whatever you want. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. But what I'm saying is, if you haven't studied logic, if you haven't studied these sort of concepts in depth, then sometimes it's better you don't enter into that arena of debate and discussion in the first place. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. In our next section, inshallah, we're going to talk about how, after all of these objects of worship that we talked about, right? People worship, celebrities or kings or rulers, scholars. Either they're worshiping people because of power and control, they're worshiping people because of the status or fame that they have, or the great knowledge that they may possess in certain things. We obviously know at the end of the day, it's only Allah that's worth worshiping. But what does that really mean? And what are some of the modern day idols, besides scholars, what are some of the modern day problems and idols that you and I are facing right now? And how is it addressed in the Quran? And what are some ways that we can reframe our approach in the modern day world so that we truly only worship Allah and don't associate partners with Him? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, let's go on to the quiz, inshallah. Okay, so assalamu alaikum everybody, welcome back. So we have 3 people right now. While everybody is, I don't know if it has to be open, I believe there was one question on Slido as well, if I'm not mistaken. If it is, let's take a look at that. Okay, so Hani Jess is asking, how about do all 4, 1 per week? Okay, so I think this is in reference to the poll, which we'll show a little bit later too. So we did this poll, right? We started it on Eid al-Zahra. We said that once a month, meaning once every, out of our 4 Thursdays, one Thursday we want to do something non-traditional, right? To change it up a little bit. And we had a poll about which subject matter do you want to go through. So one of them was about contemporary issues, right? The stuff that that we mentioned tonight, for example. One of them, it's okay, you can go back to the quiz, thank you. One of them was about fiqh issues, about like legal issues right now. One of them was a commentary on different du'as. And one of the options was about commentary on famous ayat of the Quran. So far, from when I looked at the poll earlier today, it seems most people want to go through contemporary issues today, right? Like talking about tawassul or the Imam of the time or la'na, these types of hot button issues. So I think that'll be, inshallah, once we're ready to start those programs, we'll do that. But as Hani was asking, why not do all 4, 1 per week? So the idea was that some of these topics require a non-traditional matter. I don't want to do it in a monologue because then we won't have a proper back and forth rapport, right? And we want that rapport back and forth. We want it in more of a classroom environment. So some people may be okay with that, but again, we don't, like some people had said in the Slido, I think, comments a couple weeks ago, that if we want to start to make changes to programming, we have to do it, in baby steps, very, very slowly, because some people, want the traditional monologue format and everything, which is fine. So that's why, for now, we'll start with just one Thursday out of the month. We'll see how that works, and inshallah, if it's received well, then we'll decide what to do from there, inshallah. But yeah, to kind of flip and change everything all at once, maybe some people would like that, but I think there would be a big movement against that. So, we have to try to make sure we take care of everybody's comfortability levels. Okay, so assalamu alaikum to everybody. Labbaik ya Imam. Hello world. Ali, Prakash Patel, Aristotle, Zahra Ali, AM, Python Gamer, F, Oh My Rasul, Sheikh Hasan Rizvi. I don't know why there's always this identity theft every week. DUGNC. Okay, so we only have 12 tonight. That's okay. Let's get started, inshallah. First, what is the significance of the 9th of Rabi-ul-Awwal, aka Eid al-Zahra? Is it Imam Hussein alayhi salam's killers brought to justice by Mukhtar, the beginning of the Imam Mahdi's imamah, the death of a companion who oppressed the Ahlul Bayt, none of the above, or all of the above? My screen froze, so I don't know. Okay, so looks like it's almost a 50-50 split. People are a little confused. We had said that many people believe it has something to do with Mukhtar. It has nothing to do with Mukhtar. Yes, Mukhtar's movement did begin in Rabi-ul-Awwal. That's correct. But the 9th of Rabi-ul-Awwal has nothing to do with that. It seems some people thought that this is the day that the news reached the people of Medina that Umar ibn Sa'd had been killed, but historically it doesn't seem like there's any authenticity to that. So the strongest opinion is that the 9th of Rabi-ul-Awwal is the beginning of the imamat of Imam al-Mahdi, because obviously the 8th of Rabi-ul-Awwal was the shahada of the 11th Imam. Okay. Next question. The word Allah is a combination of what? Is it alif and la, alif lam plus la, alif lam plus ilah, or alif lam lam plus alif and ha, or none of the above? Uh, 77% of you are correct. It's alif lam plus the word ilah. Ilah means God or object of worship. And alif lam, we said, is like a definite article. It means the, but what does it actually mean? That's what we discussed tonight, right? Question number 3. Applying la ilaha illallah practically means what? Performing your duties as a Muslim without asking questions, making Allah your priority in thought, speech, and action, reading Quran every day, fasting whatever you can read that yourself, or all of the above. Because I put a timer on, I can't read everything. Okay, so even though we didn't actually go through this, 80% of you intuitively got it right, that it's making Allah your priority in thought, speech, and action, right? Not the other things. Ahsant. And then 4th, should be a random question. Yeah. Oxford University is older than the Aztec Empire. True or false? Wow, so most of you got it wrong. And I actually was caught off guard about this too. So Oxford University, apparently they first started teaching or had teachers in 1025 or something like that. The Aztec Empire, although in our minds it feels like it's something ancient, apparently the official Aztec Empire doesn't begin till like the 1300s, which is very interesting. I mean, I had no idea until this question came up. So, okay, let's see. Who has won tonight? So congratulations, Aristotle. Okay, so nobody got 4 out of 4, but Aristotle at least got 3 out of 4 in 28 seconds. And second place, Oh My Rasul. Third, Labbaik Ya Imam. Prakash Patel, 4th. And then F, 5th. So good job to all of you. Oh, what's the Oxford one? That was a tough question, I will say. Okay, so inshallah, hopefully we will see you all at the event tomorrow night, the Milad. Hope to see you all there. And then, of course, we have the program for the Wilada, Milad Rasul on Saturday night. Of course, we have on Sunday, Fajr will be 6:45, our Jamaat prayer with our discussion on self-building, and then our breakfast and then informal discussion afterwards. And for those of you who have been attending the book club, we had our first session already on Monday night, and we'll continue that. Well, actually, no, I'm not sure if we're doing it weekly yet or not, right? But those who are in the group, you can wait for the announcements for that, inshallah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala Ahl Baytihi Tayyibin Tahirin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا وجليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا وارث عادم سفوة الله، السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله، السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله، السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله، السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله، السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام ولي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى، السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور، أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونحيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأسلاب الشامخة والأرحام المتحرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها، ولم تلبسك من مدلحمات ثيابها، وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الحادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وعلام الحدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة ولا أحل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبيا بكم موقن بشرع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وعمري لعمركم متبع، صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباه، السلام عليكم يا أسفياء الله وأوداه، السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الناصح، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله، بعبي أنتم وعمي، تبتم وتابت العرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأخوتهم على الإسلام. أشهد لك قد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المخارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر والأخ الدافي والنخيل المجيب إلى طاعة ربي، الراغب فيما زهد فيه غير من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل، والحقك الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء بعيد المدى، السلطان أبا الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا حجة الله ابن الحسن يا صاحب الأسر والزمان، سيدي الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على